You are listening to Accents, a radio show for literature, art, and culture. I'm your host, Katerina Stoikova, and my guest is writer Tommy Orange. Hi, Tommy, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, relatively good, all things considered. Thank you for having me.
We will be talking about his award-winning book, They Are There, published by Alfred A. Knopf in New York, and now coming out in Bulgarian in Sofia by ICU Publishing, in translation by Velin Krastev. How did you get the idea for the book?
I was born and raised in Oakland, and my dad is native. He's Cheyenne, and my mom is white, and a lot of the characters have that sort of mixed heritage identity. And then I also worked in the Native American community in Oakland for almost a decade, doing a lot of different things, everything from data entry to helping with grants and digital storytelling projects and different kinds of media and community events. So I felt like this story was something that I was not seeing depicted in movies or in books, and it felt very much like it should. And also the city of Oakland is rarely depicted, and so I wanted to try to, write a novel about something that I felt was worthy to be in a book, and to try to tell it in the most compelling way possible.
I loved living into the book's world, which is very different from my own world. I'm an immigrant. I live in United States. What was it like to live inside the world of this book?
Well, it was my first attempt at writing a novel, and for the first half of writing it, I really didn't know what I was doing. It was difficult, and the book sort of teaches you how to write the book, is what I learned. And the second half of writing it, I was in an MFA program, so I was getting feedback from published authors who are the professors, and then other students. I was accountable to people, and I got a little more structure in place. So it was a long journey. 6 years working on anything is difficult, because you're continuing to have to look at your own work, and you don't always feel good about it, and you want to make it better, and you don't always know how. So it's a whole process, and I'm going through it again. I'm just finishing a next book, and it actually follows the same characters, and it's everything that happens to them after the powwow.
Do you feel an immigrant?
I feel like my dad came from a different country. My mom's from here, but I do feel like my dad came from a different country, and I was raised by somebody who came from a different country within this country.
There is a number of issues discussed in the book: identity, belonging, suicide, alcohol, crime. What do you think is the worst problem currently?
The coronavirus. A lot of the problems are systemic, and the U.S., the government has they've never done it right when it comes to Native people. And I think a lot could be done by just acknowledging what happened in history. Because in schools, they're continuing to teach a lie about what happened in order to keep America's honor intact. And I think, aside from a lot of things that are really hard to control, like poverty and suicide rates and alcoholism and drug abuse, I think that could do a lot to help Native people move toward healing.
And do Native writers and poets face unique challenges? What do you think?
I think Native people face the problem of invisibility. We're kind of like the minority amongst minorities. We're the same population, roughly the same population as Jewish people in the United States, but the visibility is totally different. So I think for Native writers to get exposure, and like my book's success is kind of a phenomenon because we normally don't get a lot of attention. We're not often seen in a national spotlight or talked about in a very significant way. So Native writers do, and I think the Native writing community right now is a healthy one, and we're all trying to support each other as much as we can.
What is a powwow for you personally?
Well, I didn't really grow up going to powwows. My dad didn't grow up that way either. I use it in the book because for Native people living in the city, there's not that many big community gatherings, and the ones that are powwows. And you have a lot of different tribes coming together at a powwow, and you have kind of older traditions and newer ones coming together, sort of like a traditional and contemporary scene. And I thought that was very fitting for the urban Indian story I was trying to.
Are you a poet? Have you written any poetry? Yeah, I read your book, and I think that you're a poet as well. So,
Well, thank
so
you.
I look forward to reading your poetry as well. And I loved how I love the pacing of the book, how the chapters became very short at the end because everything sped up. That was beautiful. The whole thing was beautiful. That's why I thought you're a poet, such attention to detail.
It's funny that you ask. I just got my first poetry editorial note. I was asked to submit a poem for an anthology, and it got accepted just yesterday. And then I have a forthcoming poem that's going to be published in a journal maybe next month. But that's my first two attempts at even trying to get published. I think I've been writing it for a while, but I never tried to get it published before.
How did you start writing?
I was working at a used bookstore, and at the time I was just starting to get into philosophy and religion and psychology books, just sort of searching for meaning because I grew up with a really intense religious background. And I was sort of searching it out for myself, and I kind of stumbled into fiction, and Borges and Kafka were two early writers that I really loved, and they were a really good bridge from philosophy to fiction because they have a lot of it in their work.
I hope you have time to write, because someone with such talent and vision and authenticity should be writing books. And I think that creator takes care of the rest to have the books reach the people who need to read the books.
I believe so too. Thank you.